Operation Entebbe, also known as Operation Thunderbolt, was a meticulously planned and daring counter-terrorism mission executed by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, to rescue hostages held at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. The crisis began on June 27, 1976, when Air France Flight 139, an Airbus A300 carrying 248 passengers and 12 crew members, departed from Tel Aviv for Paris with a scheduled stop in Athens. During the Athens layover, 4 hijackers, 2 from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, External Operations, PFLPEO, and 2 from the German left-wing militant group Revolutionary Cells, boarded the aircraft. Shortly after takeoff, the hijackers stormed the cockpit, armed with pistols and grenades, and forced the pilots to divert the plane. The aircraft first landed in Benghazi, Libya, where it refueled and one hostage, a woman pretending to be in medical distress, was released. After 7 hours on the ground, the hijackers directed the plane toward Entebbe, Uganda, where they were welcomed by the Ugandan dictator, Idi Amin, who provided them with military support. Upon arrival at Entebbe Airport, the hijackers moved the hostages into the old terminal building and issued their demands: the release of 40 Palestinian militants imprisoned in Israel and an additional 13 held in other countries. They warned that if their demands were not met, they would begin executing hostages. Over the next 2 days, the terrorists conducted a selection process, separating Jewish and Israeli passengers from the others. The non-Israeli hostages were eventually released and flown to Paris, while 106 hostages, mostly Israelis and Air France crew members who refused to leave, remained captive under the guard of both the terrorists and heavily armed Ugandan soldiers. As diplomatic negotiations appeared to stall, Israel determined that a military response was the only viable solution. The Israeli government, led by Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, began planning an elaborate rescue operation, relying on intelligence gathered from various sources, including a Mossad network in Kenya, reports from released hostages, and even blueprints of Entebbe Airport, which an Israeli construction company had previously built. The IDF devised a bold plan that involved flying an elite commando force over 4,000 kilometers to Uganda in complete secrecy. The mission was entrusted to the Sayeret Matkal Special Forces Unit, led by Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, the older brother of future Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The plan called for 4 C-130 Hercules transport planes to fly low over the Red Sea, avoiding radar detection, before landing at Entebbe under the cover of darkness. On the night of July 3 to 4, 1976, the operation commenced. The first aircraft landed at Entebbe, carrying the assault team and a black Mercedes-Benz limousine, accompanied by Land Rover escorts, mimicking the motorcade typically used by Idi Amin in an attempt to deceive Ugandan soldiers. The ruse worked for a few moments, but suspicions arose, and a Ugandan guard attempted to stop the vehicle. The commandos swiftly neutralized him and stormed the terminal. In a meticulously executed assault lasting less than 90 seconds, they eliminated all 7 hijackers, ensuring that no explosives could be detonated. The commandos then secured the hostages and began evacuating them. Meanwhile, Israeli forces destroyed over 30 Ugandan fighter jets, primarily Soviet-made MiG-17s and MiG-21s, to prevent any pursuit during their escape. Despite the overwhelming success of the mission, there were casualties. 3 hostages were killed in the crossfire, while a 4th, Dora Bloch, an elderly Israeli-British woman who had been taken to a Kampala hospital earlier, was later murdered by Ugandan security forces in retaliation. The most significant loss for Israel was the death of Yonatan Netanyahu, who was fatally wounded by a Ugandan sniper while leading the assault. He was the only Israeli soldier killed in action. As the C-130s lifted off with the freed hostages, the commandos made a brief stop in Nairobi, Kenya, for refueling before completing the journey back to Israel. The mission, which lasted only 53 minutes on the ground, was hailed as one of the most successful special operations in history. It not only demonstrated Israel's unwavering commitment to protecting its citizens but also set a precedent for future counterterrorism operations worldwide. The boldness, precision, and effectiveness of Operation Entebbe cemented its place as a legendary military operation, showcasing Israel's intelligence, strategic planning, and the extraordinary skill of its elite forces.